Hey everybody, I am thrilled to be here with all of you as well as with Alex and Bennett. Our topic is leadership, which is multi-dimensional for both of you. We only have 30 minutes to cover a lot of ground, so let's jump right in. Number one, we'll talk about your organizations and your roles. Start with Bennett. Ares has emerged as a force in sports as an institutional investor. LAFC is the gold standard for MLS, by the way, with San Diego soon to be hot on your heels. Compare and contrast.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Compare and contrast your role as an institutional investor versus being a team owner.
So, LAFC is a personal investment of mine, and Ares is the firm I co-founded, and where we raised an institutional fund of about $3.5 billion to invest in sports, just to give the background. And as you're investing as an institutional investor, number one, you have a mandate to generate a specific return for investors. So we go out to investors and we say, here's our target rates of return. We go out and we say, these are the parameters that we're going to invest in. And there's a formula, and we're sort of have really flexible capital, but we are within the mandate of trying to generate returns for our investors. And so everything we do is within that mandate and looking to provide capital to the industry. It happens to be fun to do it in sports. We love investing in sports, but there is a real mission we have to provide our investors with the right rate of return and excess return for the risk they're taking. So when you look at that, and we have an investment committee and a very formal process. And the other element I would add is we don't manage the teams. We don't manage the clubs. We don't manage the leagues. We are in the business of being a great partner to people and being a great capital provider and thought partner for people. LAFC I'm in a lead role with my two partners, Brandon and Larry, in helping to drive value, helping to drive the club, not just in terms of the investment return. That's for us and our partners. It's almost, and we'll talk about this a little later, but it's pretty much a secondary priority for us. We do it because we love it. It's out of passion. And all our partners in the club do it not because they thought it was the best investment they can make, but they did it because they're passionate about the sport, they're passionate about the club, they're passionate about the community. And we still got to build a great business. We still got to be top level on the pitch. But that's not the primary driver is not return.
Makes sense. And you started this new fund. Talk about that decision, what led you to form that fund, and how that process went.
Yeah, so I had the interest in LAFC. My partner Tony is the lead owner of the Atlanta Hawks. And my partner Mike, who's now one of the lead owners of the Orioles and had some other sports investments, had a decent amount of exposure to the sports business. So we all felt like we probably knew more than we really did, but we knew we had a real network in the sports business. And when the pandemic came around, we saw a real need. We saw a need for capital to be provided to the industry. There was a real shortage of capital providers. And I think the pandemic exposed something that wasn't very readily obvious to people before. We also saw teams, and that what wasn't obvious was the sort of limited number of capital providers to the industry. There were wealthy individuals, and then there were institutional bank partners, and there was nothing in between. We also saw at the NBA and at MLS, and with the other leagues as well, but we were right in the middle of it with those leagues, we saw the beginning of an openness towards bringing in institutional partners. And what did we see and why did we see it? Because as team valuations were going up, to sustain those values, you needed more capital to be provided to have people interested in driving the valuation that could support higher and higher valuations, and that would be found with institutional capital in the institutional community. And then the third thing is we saw a hole in the middle of the capital structure. So there's secured bank debt that the league would let you do. There was common that the wealthy individuals were doing in sports teams, but then there was a hole in the middle of the capital structure because that gap had been growing, where the valuations were getting higher and higher, and the amount of debt the teams would let that the leagues would let the teams incur was substantially lower. So we saw that opportunity. We jumped on it. We went out to raise $1.5 billion fund. We raised $3.5 billion, and the demand for our capital is far exceeded what even we thought it would be.
That's awesome. We'll switch gears for a second with Alex because it's public that Arctos invested in the Kings. In fact, my firm worked on that deal in part, and curious what you can share about the decision preemptively, obviously, in advance, what those discussions were about taking on institutional capital as a team ownership group.
Thanks, Brent. In our situation up in Sacramento, it was something that we were tracking, and as this capital was being formed, it was something that was very intriguing. There were a lot of conversations, obviously, within the industry and at the league levels on how the governance rights would work and how these investments would exit, and a variety of other factors. And there were only a limited number of really well-established firms that had the ability to jump through all the hoops to make it work with the leagues. And in our situation in Sacramento, as you know well, Brent, we had we have an ownership group that had kind of a long tail with a lot of local investors, and they were very important to the organization as the organization restabilized after acquisition, and a lot of the real estate development occurred, particularly with the Golden One Center as the new home of the Sacramento Kings. And after a number of years, some of the local investors wanted to realize some of the gains that have been made. So it was really a great way to satisfy liquidity for some of the smaller investors, as well as being a platform that allowed us as an organization to grow beyond just the core business. To Bennett's point, we've been able to expand the platform into minor league baseball, additional real estate, a G League team, an esports team, and capital coming in beyond just the profits that are generated from the business has allowed for that growth.
That's excellent. Well, on the leadership note, back to that topic, Alex, with the Thorns, it's actually really cool. You're working with your sister. I have a sister. That must be great. I mean, a lot of these sports businesses are family businesses, and the Kings ownership group is like a family in a lot of ways. Tell us about that dynamic with Lisa.
Yeah, I've been partners with my sister in a variety of businesses for over 20 years. I don't want to say how much longer because that dates us. And it's been a phenomenal partnership to be able to do business with your family. We have very complementary skill sets. She's incredibly talented in ways that complement my skill set. So we've always been a great team, and it's great to have that just the trust that comes with those types of familiar bonds. Like, we can argue about stuff, but we know it's always coming from a good place and coming from what we think is right for the business rather than anything other than that. The only thing I will say is one time I parked in her parking spot, and that was a really bad day. So you got to watch it sometimes with the family.
That's great. Bennett, back to the multi-club topic a little bit. You partnered with Bayern Munich fairly recently. Talk about your strategy there and how that's working.
Yeah, so one of the things we saw was this arbitrage between MLS and players trading to Europe. And I was talking before about Brendan Aronson, who I believe Philadelphia sold for like $7 to $8 or $9 million to Salzburg. And Brendan got exposure at Salzburg, got exposure in Champions League. And then, what do you know, within 2 months, Leeds bought him for $30 million. And we saw that, and we said, look, we got to somehow capture that arbitrage, because we got to get MLS players shown in the European markets. At the same time, Bayern came to us and said, we'd like to partner with what we see as the premier club in MLS. We were excited to partner with, obviously one of the premier clubs in the world, and figure out how to create a player development pathway that wasn't just relying on scouting around, South America, scouting in Europe, but that we could actually take the lessons we learned from LAFC player development, take the lessons that Bayern has being, a world-class club in player development, and sorry, that's the commissioner calling me now. I'll have to wait. Do that in a way that was more institutionalized. And so we bought a club called Grasshopper, which is the premier club in Switzerland. We bought a club called FC Wacker, which is an old-style, well-known club in Austria that had come on hard times, had gone through bankruptcy, is currently a fourth division club. And we saw the opportunity to take players and put them there and get them exposure in Europe. We also bought, with Bayern Munich, we bought Racing, which is a club in Uruguay, and we bought an academy in Gambia. So with all those pieces, we think we have we think we're in the global hotbeds of soccer. We think we're in the global scout. That will give us a global scouting network way bigger than we could do on our own. And while we don't expect to make a lot of money on the ownership of those clubs, we do expect to do really well in terms of our player development pathway, and that should help us generate both talent for LAFC, talent for Grasshopper, talent for Bayern Munich, as well as, hopefully increase our transfer revenues and profits over time.
That's interesting. Alex, you're now an owner in 5 teams, the Thorns, the Kings, the G League team, and the River Cats. How do you balance your leadership roles with all those organizations?
Well, the Thorns are taking up a lot of our time right now. It's really exciting. We just closed that transaction January 2nd. So we've been able to roll up our sleeves and dive in with a lot of the transition from the Timbers. It used to be owned by the MLS team, Merritt Paulson and Hank Paulson. So we bought it from them. And when we acquired the team, we acquired the soccer operations. So all of the coaches and general manager and all that came over day one. But we instituted a transitional services agreement with the Timbers to help us in the transition on the business operations side, and now we're really focused on that. So we've hired our president, Alexis Lee, who has a deep history in sport, business of sports, and roots in Portland. So she has a mission to fill 33 positions immediately. So over the course of the year, we're doing a lot of hiring. We're ramping up the partnership and the sponsorships operation, as well as ticketing and marketing and social media. So that whole effort is a major focus right now. We're unfortunately at the end of the basketball season. So there's fewer trips to Sacramento than there was, and I get a little PTSD at this time of year when I need to calm down and ease off the basketball games. But a lot of the work that we did up in Sacramento was related to the real estate and the business side of the operation, and thankfully all of that is going really well. The arena is built, it's beautiful, it's allowed for the development of what's called DOCO, which is the district around the arena that consists of a hotel, condominiums, restaurant retail space, and mixed-use office space. So that's a $1 billion development that really helped to transform the urban core of Sacramento, and it's been just a joy to see that flourish, and it was a lot of hard work for everybody involved in the organization to get it to this point of stabilization, but now it's there, and just seeing, for example, last year's playoffs when hundreds of thousands of people came into DOCO outside of the arena, whether they're going to the game or not, just to see that support of the community for the team and be able to bring everybody together in this centralized location was just so rewarding for everybody involved in the organization, especially us.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it didn't vitalized downtown Sacramento. And it's the white paper for sports as a real estate deal, which is one of our mantras. You guys executed at an incredibly high level. Bennett, in your stadium as well. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about, since we hit the real estate topic, about building a new stadium and that process and how it's additive to your equity and to your long-term future.
Our building is a special place for anybody who's been there. I hope a lot of people, unbiased, I'm clearly biased, but a lot of people would tell us it's the best live sporting experience in LA. And we were very fortunate to have great partners in terms of Gensler, and really benefited from an amazing location downtown, right in the heart of the city, so that it attracts people from all over the community. And we wanted to build a building that not only was a little bit of a cathedral to soccer, because if you come, you can see we put in a lot of thought into the supporter section, which is what drives football culture, which is what drives the experience for the rest of the fan base and our support and our club. We also knew that it's a tough business. You can't just make your revenue off of games. You're only busy 17 games a year, so we had to make it friendly to concerts. And we're blessed that in LA we have great weather here, and so seeing an outdoor concert at our stadium is really a phenomenal experience. And then we also have signage that's in LA is pretty valuable around the stadium. So from a revenue perspective, it gives us an edge. I'm sure you guys have seen we're one of the most highly valued clubs in the world today, but with the rankings you guys put out. And the reason is revenue is driven by that building. It's by the great product we put in it, but it is also a function of the stadium we built, the premium sections. When we first did it, the investment into premium was questionable whether it was going to be worth it. And at the end of the day, it's made the economics of the building much, much better. And so between concerts, signage, sponsorship within the building and outside the building, it's really helped us. At the end of the day, I said we do this for love and for passion, but it helps us support a great club and helps us put a great product on the pitch.
Well, as leaders, part of your role is to strategize and pre-think. I've had tours of both buildings, and those were both pre-thought exceptionally well, not just soccer and basketball in mind. Alex, do you care to elaborate on that at all, about the Golden One Center?
I mean, the Golden One Center, if you guys haven't had a chance to go and see it, I mean, it's an amazing building, and we have a lot of pride in what's been accomplished there. It's the most technologically advanced arena in the world. It was the first LEED Platinum arena in the world. It was the first indoor-outdoor arena in the NBA with 5-story tall airplane hangar doors that open and close so you can play a game with an open-air feel when the weather cooperates. It's really a spectacular place, and the fans have definitely responded to. We sold out the whole year. There's a waiting list to get in the building, and we're always finding innovative ways to optimize the building. And as an example, there was a kind of like actually just extra warehouse space when you kind of walk in by the visiting team locker rooms, and we used it for T-shirts and all the excess merch. And a couple of years ago, we said, that's something interesting there. Maybe we can convert that, and we need a little more luxury club space. So we converted a room that's probably maybe a little about this size to this ultra premium courtside club. And I don't know if you've had a chance to see the Row 1 club.
I have.
It's spectacular.
Awesome.
And there's like every top shelf thing you can imagine, great food, great atmosphere. You feel like you're in the nicest LA restaurant, and it's inside the arena of Sacramento. So just having that mindset of, pushing on premium and creating an environment where people want to go. It's entertainment. They come there, whether it's on a date or with their business colleagues or with their families. There's always something for everybody to make a wonderful night out.
That segues perfectly into our next subtopic of leadership. Most owners, excuse me, consider themselves stewards of these amazing assets, our sports teams. And so Bennett, we talked about this a little bit. These are profit-making enterprises, but at the same time, to Alex's point, the civic pride, the community pride in these assets, and as owners, we're stewards. How do you blend those two factors in your approach as owners?
Yeah, so we have a responsibility to our shareholders to create value. So we do have a fiduciary duty to them. But at the end of the day, all our partners that joined knew we were building something that was going to be great for the community. And if you look at our mission statement, it has nothing to do with profit. We have a mission statement that basically includes three elements. We're going to unite the world city with the world's game. And LA being the diverse city it is, we do think it brings people together and creates an environment and an atmosphere where, given the divided country we live in today, it's sort of a relief from everything we go through day to day. And that brings the second point of our mission statement is bring joy to the city. So we always have that in mind, is that when people come into our building, they should have a good time. They should be viewing it as fun and being as a respite from life. And then third is be a force for good. So making sure we're doing the right thing in the community. When you are a steward of a sports team, you have an amazing platform and we have a foundation. And I always say in our foundation meetings that we could raise $1. $1's great, and it'll go to great use. We're going to make sure we put it to great use. But because of our platform, that dollar ought to leverage into $5 or $10 so that we could have 10 times the impact that just that $1 would have that we could raise as an institution. But because we are who we are and because we have the platform and we can attract people and we could attract their dollars, we need to be really sensitive to making sure we're maximizing that impact on the community. So whether it's doing, feeding the food insecure, or providing education about leadership to young leaders, or providing after-school activities through the pitches we build at various public schools. Those are all things we could do. We could use our platform to do, and we could attract other partners to help us finance it so that our impact is multiplied.
Love it. Alex will hit Sacramento first, then Portland, because two very different cities. So I lived there for 23 years before coming here about 4 years ago. So I can firsthand say there's few places on earth where the team is a community asset, or that feeling is. It's truly ingrained in who Sacramento is, because it's been the only major league sport there forever. And side note, Chris Kelly and I were having lunch, and we figured out how we make the playoffs next year, so sidebar later. But tell us a story about your leadership role in keeping the Kings in Sacramento versus moving to Seattle.
So on the Sacramento side, where to begin with that? That was a long story. But I guess it goes back to a little bit of our family journey in the business of sports. So that's something that has united our family way back since we were little kids. And my dad immigrated here in 1960 from India, and he just kind of fell in love with American culture and American sport. So when he met my mom, she is a native Californian who played golf and tennis at UCLA. So she was a female athlete, which I guess is relevant to our experience now in women's sports. And my sister and I love sports. We played sports, and it was just something that bonded our family together. And early on, this was when I was a little kid in 1989, the NFL was starting the World League of American Football, and it later became NFL Europe. And they selected my dad to become the first owner in that league. So we had ownership experience dating back decades, and wanted to get back into the business of sports after we sold one of our family businesses, and started looking at different team opportunities. Developed a relationship with the league and some of the owners in the NBA. And long story short, after a couple false starts looking, as you guys, this is the business of, or investing in sports is not an easy thing to do, and it takes a few iterations before you find the right opportunity and before you can execute on those right opportunities. So after looking for teams over a few years, we had developed a relationship with the league office, and there was a situation in Sacramento where the team was going to move to Seattle, like you mentioned. It was actually in a purchase and sale agreement. Hard money was wired. It was like a done deal, and Sacramento was going to lose the team. And there was an effort made by the mayor at the time, who was Kevin Johnson, who was a former NBA player, and he was working with the league office on what could be done to keep the Kings in Sacramento. And it was really kind of a last-ditch effort to keep the team there, because everything indicated it was gone. But David Stern, Commissioner Stern, didn't want to move the team unless he absolutely had to, and he wanted to exhaust every option. And so the mayor and the league office the mayor's office worked on a public-private partnership to facilitate the development of the Golden One Center, and they had local community investors ready to go, but they were looking for kind of the core of the ownership group. So that's when the commissioner kind of brokered the deal and made the introductions for Vivek Ranadive, who's our governor, our family, and the Jacobs family, who are down in San Diego, to come together and finish off the group. And now we had the arena, we had the ownership group, and the support of the community. So it all came together. It was an amazing experience. It happened really fast for us. We kind of came in at the end as everything was happening, and kind of came in to get it over the line. It was an amazing experience to kind of close the deal, but then the hard work began. We used to play in an arena that was the smallest and the oldest in the NBA, and the mission was, how quickly can we get this new arena to be up and open? And as you guys know, in California, it's not easy building anything, but it was amazing how fast that arena was able to get done. And it's a credit to everybody involved in the project to go from a money-losing team about to move out of the market, which would have been devastating for the community, to a brand new world-class arena within 3 years, and a profitable self-funding business that could allow for further expansion. So it was a great experience to be a part of.
Truly a magical moment for Sacramento. In the interest of time, we'll move on to the final topic. We have two soccer team owners here, so we have to mention soccer in the United States. And so both of you owning teams, our firm helped bring San Diego an MLS expansion team. We all have a vested interest in proliferating the growth of soccer in the United States, so we can catch up with the rest of the world and be the best in the world, like we want to be in the United States and everything. I know we are the best in the world in women's, Alex, but we also want to be in the men's side too. So there was an inflection point in '94 with the World Cup. There's another inflection point coming in 2026. Bennett, talk about your role, personal, and LAFC's role in helping soccer grow in the United States with the World Cup approaching right now.
Yeah, so our co-president, Larry Friedman, and worked with Chris Klein, who was with the Galaxy, to lead the host committee for LA and bringing the World Cup here. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of negotiation with FIFA, but fortunately, I think we've got the best venue in the world in SoFi to host a World Cup. So we're excited it's going to come here, and the opening game for the U.S. men's national team is going to be in LA. So super excited about that. I think there's a lot of building blocks to get us in a position to grow the interest in the sport in the U.S., which the World Cup will ultimately do in a big way. But everything we do leading up to that, and whether it's sort of growing our stadium base and the experience for fans in the U.S., because every time we get somebody to a match or every time we get somebody to watch on Apple TV, there's more and more interest in the game. And the anticipation for the World Cup is going to accelerate. The Copa that's coming here this year, the Olympics, the Leagues Cup and all the things that are leading up to that, to the World Cup, are going to help sort of accelerate the build into the excitement of the World Cup. So I think it's going to be great for U.S. interest in the sport. And Gianni Infantino moved to Miami. He was here in the last couple of days. He fundamentally believes that the MLS should be the best league in the world, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be. And one of the reasons I believe they came and brought the World Cup to the U.S. is because it's the biggest market, it's the best market, it should be the best league in the world.
Alex, how about you?
Well, I think drafting off of that, I mean, anytime there's the global spotlight on the U.S. in soccer, it's going to help the whole industry, and on a global basis, but specifically here. And I think some of that impact may be dampening just because of all of the success that soccer has had in this country, led by the success of MLS. I mean, these are real things. It used to be, when the World Cup comes, then all of a sudden people pay attention to soccer. Like, that's not true. People are paying attention to soccer all the time now. And so it's just an incremental step up. And I think it's going to help the MLS, you know, on its path up the global rankings. And to your point, the NWSL arguably is the top league in the world right now, and for women. And we have the best women's national team here in the U.S. So it's a different set of challenges, but one of the great aspects of being involved on the women's side of the soccer business is we are the best, and how can we accentuate our lead as other markets and other leagues and other clubs are attempting to catch up and make those investments now as the global sport grows on the women's side. And that's why one of the key reasons why we were so excited about the Portland Thorns opportunity is we are buying the best team. This is like we call it the New York Yankees of women's soccer. They've won the most championships. They've always had the highest attendance. They've, I think, missed the playoffs once in their history. It is the gold standard. So how can we take something that's already really, really good and make it the clear-cut number one in the world? And we think we can do that. We have a plan to do that. It's going to be a challenge, but it's a different set of challenges and issues on the women's side than it is on the men's side.
I love it. We'll do it in Sacramento too, right? Thank you very much. Our time's up. Great job, gentlemen. Have a great day.